Hi, everyone.
Hello.
So for the newcomers on this meetup, I'll start presenting it. LPCx, it's a free monthly meetup on product management and product design. And it is a spin-off of La Product Conf, an annual event that gathered in 2019 over 800 product people. La Product Conf and LPCx are both co-created with TIGA. And TIGA is a consulting company specialized in product management and product design. And the firm is doing delivery, consulting, and also training for a large range of clients, from startups to large corporate groups. Going back to today, so today we are going to discuss delivery process, and especially in a B2B context. So I'll now to start Emily and Audrey present themselves and also present us Shift Technology.
Thanks, Marie. So hi, everyone. I'm Emily. I'm a product manager at Shift, working on our claims fraud detection product in Audrey's team. As a bit about me, I'm originally from the UK, and so I joined Shift just over a year ago. Before that, I was living and working in London as a technology consultant for just under 5 years. So this is my first real dedicated product management role, and I look forward to sharing some of my experiences with you today.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Marie. Hi, everyone. So I'm Audrey. I'm a head of product at Shift Technology. I joined Shift about 2 years ago when the product team was getting started. I had the chance to build the fraud detection team around the product Emily is responsible for today. On the more personal level, I'm working now for 8 years in the product management field in Paris, having held several positions in startups, scale-ups, and consulting. So to talk a little bit about Shift Technology, it's a scale-up that was founded in 2014 by 3 young French engineers wanting to help insurers fight fraud leveraging AI. So today we are still serving the insurance industry. Our clients are really only insurers, but we have more products than just fraud detection. And our mission is to help them deliver an amazing customer experience and win the fight against fraud. Shift Technology, it's about 300 people today. And we are, so we have a big office in Paris, but we have tech offices in Singapore, Tokyo, and Boston too.
Okay, so product for fraud detection, it's quite specific. Could you give us an example of a typical client that you have, and also illustrate like who are your users?
Yeah, sure. So as Audrey said, Shift specifically targets the insurance industry, and we work across different lines of business. So we work with what's called P&C insurers, which is property and casualty, and also across the health and life insurance space as well. We have clients all over the world. To give you a few examples, we work with an organization called MS&AD, who are based in Japan. In France, we work with Generali and Harmony Mutuelle, as a couple of examples, and then with some of the top carriers based over in the US. In terms of our kind of end users, these are typically members of an insurer's claims or fraud team, and that depends a bit on the insurer's size or their kind of internal structure, how that's set up. And our day-to-day end users are fraud handlers, but they can also be kind of expert fraud investigators or their team managers that are using the product on a daily basis.
Okay. And can you also, following on general questions, can you explain us how are the team organized at Shift Technology?
Yes, I'll take this one. So the team overall structure is quite standard for a B2B SaaS company. We have 2 things that are quite specific to Shift, and I will describe this a little bit. So first is the customer success team. So this team is part of the sales team, And it's constituted of people that are really experts in the insurance industry. They have held high positions at insurers. So, for example, head of fraud or head of claims. And they're really business experts and go-to person internally. Their main mission is to work hand in hand with clients to make sure we have the right processes that go with the tool so that the impact of the fraud detection product and the other products we're selling is as high as possible. And you'll see that for us as a product team, they're really important partners to understand client needs and help us in the discovery process. Another important team for us is the data science team. So at Shift, we have 100 data scientists. I know it's a lot. It's quite a big team. They do a lot of different things. They wear a lot of hats. They're data scientists, of course, but they're really consulting around the data topics. They're the ones figuring out if we have the right data to run scenarios, which scenario can give relevant results given the data we can have from insurers. And they're part of the configuration and fine-tuning of the product for each client. So they're really close to the client, close to their use cases, and they're a strong partner for us in the product discovery aspects.
Okay, so you have insights from customer success, from data scientists, as you said. I imagine you have also requests from clients. So how do you deal with all the insights and requests that come to you?
Yeah, so you're right. At the moment, we have a lot of different insights and feedback coming in from lots of different directions, both internally, as you say, kind of from our data scientist team are a big source of insight, given how we interact on a daily basis with our customers, and that they're responsible for setting up and configuring the product as well. So they use the product as well and have lots of ideas for improvements. We also have things from the customer success team, the sales team, from the delivery team. So lots of internal sources of feedback. And then naturally, when we meet with clients ourselves, lots of pain points and ideas come up on new things that we can do for the product. So at the moment, to kind of handle all of that feedback, because most of it comes through emails or through chat messages. When we were in the office, it was a lot of kind of word of mouth as well. I've started kind of putting all of that information into Jira. The main reason for that is that's the tool that we use for our delivery process. It's kind of how we handle the development of the product. And so because it's something we're already using, it means it's quite easy to take that feedback and feed it into the backlog for the development team. And it provides some visibility internally because it's also a tool that our data scientists use day to day as well. But it's obviously not really designed for that. It's not probably the best tool on the market for feedback. And I know it's something as a product team, we're really keen to improve in the future.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Just doing a quick point here for all listeners. You can ask your questions while listening on the question tab that you have on Livestorm. So don't hesitate and we will answer it at the end. I'm sorry, I forgot to say this at the beginning. So, okay, and now I'll ask you the $1 million question. In B2B, do you often say no to your clients? And how do you avoid, if you say always yes, how do you avoid customizing your product for every client, every request?
Yeah, that's the hard question. And I guess it goes a lot around how do we do our job in a B2B context. So short answer is yes, of course, we say no to clients. Longer answer is we try not to just say no, but really engage in discussions with them. So before going a bit more into detail around this, I think the first statement I want to make is we are having a product for insurers, and so we have quite big clients. So we need to have a product that can be configured, right? We need some part of the product to be able to be really matching the client's processes. I'll give you a concrete example. So we send alerts to the fraud teams saying, we think this claim is suspicious and you should take a look and see if there is really proven fraud behind it or not. And then this alert can go through a workflow for each step being something the fraud team does. So first they say if it's relevant or not, then they will say if they want to investigate or not, if they have investigated successfully, if they have a fraud, if they have managed to really prove the fraud and not pay the claim. So all of these steps sound really like straightforward when I talk about them, but each insurer has a very specific way of flowing this information based on internal processes, internal organization, and how they work. So this workflow engine, for example, is something that can be configured in order to match the client's processes. So once that's said, of course, we don't want to have one product per client, as you mentioned, Marie. We want to have a product, and that's a SaaS product that all of our clients can use. So we do have specific requests, and I'll illustrate here again with a concrete example. We have one very big client that wanted to change the color of one icon in the graph, one of the graphs we display. And so here we did something that's really a product management approach, which was to really try to understand why they were asking for this. We didn't want to have a client having a specific color and a graph that was different from the others. So why do they want this? What's the problem they're facing? And they think the solution is, let's change the color. For me, this is really a product manager responsibility to dig into the details and go past the solution, right? It's really like the 5 whys framework and everything related to that until we understand the pain point the client is experiencing. And so for this example I just gave you, we discussed with the client, and he explained that the graph page, so it's network alerts where we show alerts that are a bit more complex than usual types of alerts, was a bit hard for him to understand. And he didn't really know how to approach the alert, what to do in order to know if it's relevant, not relevant, and like what's the first step for him once he gets this type of alert. And so the good news for us is that Emily, and she'll going to explain more about this later in the discussion, but Emily was already working on this type of alerts, as we had identified that it was a bit hard to work with and to understand. And so we could tell the client, we're not going to change the icon color because everyone's having the same graph, but we're reworking currently how this feature works. And if you're interested, you can be part of the user research group or user testing and really like be an actor in defining the behavior of this feature for the future. So in this case, they said no because they are really busy and they didn't want to take part of the process, but we often have yes. And so it gives us a client base to discuss with when we're working on features.
Okay, sure. And on your side, Emily, what do you usually do when you have a specific feature request from a client?
So I think kind of back to Audrey's first point, the first step is really challenging the request and really understanding more about why the client is asking for a particular feature. Like what is the challenge or the pain point that they're hoping they will kind of overcome with this feature. And so really the first step is understanding all of that, and really capturing and making sure we've got well-documented requirements. And then once we've decided that it's definitely something we want to build out, it's a feature we want to invest in, the next step for me is to work closely with my tech lead, so my equivalent on the development team, to kind of understand more from a technical perspective, are there any considerations we should take into account? And what does the development look like from a time frame perspective? And then for us, it's kind of comparing that to all of our other priorities and working out where it fits on our roadmap for the future.
Yeah, Okay, and talking about the roadmap, if we are on a high-level point of view, do you decide some key objectives to help you prioritize the insights and the request of your clients all along the year or all along a long-term period?
Yes, so we're currently in the process for 2021, so it's something quite fresh in my mind. It all starts basically really high up with the company mission and vision for the next years. So, for example, currently something that's important for Shift is to really expand in some key geographies like US. And so on the claims fraud detection product specifically, as it's one of the oldest products in the company, we know that if we can build a feature that will unlock this market, it will be a high priority feature. So that's one example, but basically the VP product at Shift, so my boss, is having this objective of setting clear priorities for the year to come based on the mission of the company and the technical challenges we have and everything that's happening around all of our products. So this is a process we work on myself, the two other senior PMs that have each one product scope in the company and the VP product. And once we are agreeing in that group on what the main priorities need to be, Marcel works with the executive committee at Shift to make sure we all align around this set of priorities and that it's the direction for all the products we're working on. So not just the product we're working on, Emily and I, but really the entire company and where we want to head for the next year. So then of course I'm discussing with Emily, and that's more of a back and forth than just me doing something and then discussing with her. I'm feeding the discussions I have with my boss, with discussing with her and other people. And so then she has the information and she knows like what's the impact of those direction to her product, which like the chances that Emily's product is one of the big products we have. So often the priorities relate to what Emily's doing.
Yeah, and then from my perspective, once those kind of higher level priorities have been agreed and communicated, kind of looking at the next level of detail down in terms of kind of how do we prioritize feature A over feature B if they're both kind of aiming towards the same objective. Is a case of taking into account lots of different factors. So for example, if it's a feature, how many clients are asking for that feature? What's the impact going to be? What's the technical development look like? Are there kind of bigger features that are going to take a longer period of time, for example? So kind of really take all of these different factors into account when we're prioritizing which feature we'll work on first. And also from our perspective, it's kind of important to make sure that the work we schedule aligns with the composition of our development team. So for example, if we've got a dedicated front-end developer, we want to make sure that all of the work we've got at a particular point in time isn't just back-end work. So really making sure that kind of what we plan to do works for the development team and takes all of those different factors into account.
Okay, yeah, very clear. Thank you. And on this specific network feature you are mentioning, apart from this partnership you did with your client, did you use other methods or other tools to collect and gather more feedback?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, when we first built the mockups, we used a tool called Figma to create those mockups, which is really helpful. It gives a very realistic view of what potential features will look like. And then once we started building the more interactive prototypes, we started user testing with a tool called Lookback. And the idea with Lookback is that you can share a prototype with somebody and ask them to complete certain activities and really test out the feature. And at the same time, you can record their screen, you can capture their audio and watch them actually interacting with it. And so for us, it was really interesting. I think we definitely kind of watching back through those videos of people trying out the features, made changes to the end product that we probably wouldn't have thought of if we were just doing it ourselves. So a couple of examples, we noticed that users were trying to take specific shortcuts to try and achieve certain tasks. So we kind of thought about the idea of introducing a right-click functionality, for example. And another example is the colors and some of the icons that we've chosen have been interpreted quite differently by different people. So that was really interesting to use that tool. And this time around, we really just used it internally. And the main reason for that was client had lots going on at the time and didn't really have the time to test it out with us, but they expressed an interest in doing that in the future. So I hope it's something that we can use with our clients going forwards.
Okay, thanks for this answer. So in our discussion, you shared some elements that are quite specific to B2B, like a few numbers of large clients, maybe some sales pressure sometime, and precise requests from your clients or from a data scientist team, or in your case. What are the main points that you are working on today and that you are struggling with?
Yes, sure, of course. Word is not perfect, so we still have some things that are not easy. So I'll start and let you add, Emily, afterwards. So at my level, I still think and feel that the global prioritization is a painful process. So as I mentioned, we are in it right now, and it's clearly not seamless. Planning and getting alignment across data science, dev, delivery, customer success, sales, executive committee is really not straightforward for now. It's the first year we do it the way we do it this year, really inviting data science early in the process as they are contributing to the product, and having regular meetings to agree that the plan is heading in the right direction. So it's an ongoing improving process, and this year it's still a bit tough. The other part that is sometimes not easy to deal with, and I don't have found a great answer to it yet, is everything related, as you mentioned, Marie, to the market pressure, and more like what are the consequences of this. I'll give you something concrete so you can relate. Is we have in the pipe very big prospects that can potentially become the new biggest client for us. So this means biggest client in terms of revenue, but in terms often of amount of data or complexity of things we need to do for them. And so if we wait until we sign these kind of clients to think about performance or scalability, probably it's too late. If we work on it too early, well, and we don't sign them, probably it's too early, right? So finding the right balance between being too much in advance from the pipe and being too late is something that's that's still not easy, and it's a lot around intuition and how do we feel things will happen through discussions with sales and with devs, etc. But I would like to have a kind of a more reliable process than gut feeling.
And I think kind of from my perspective, I touched on one of the areas already, but was really around how we handle feedback, finding a better way to keep track of the feedback that we get and make sure that we're responding to it properly. Another area that I think is important, and kind of when I spoke through how we make those kind of lower level prioritization decisions, at the moment, quite a lot of that is based on qualitative feedback and a bit on gut feel or intuition around the different priorities on things. And I think it'd be really great if we had more quantitative data to go by. So kind of investing more in analytics and making sure that we've got the proper metrics in place that we we can set up and track and make more data-informed decisions would be something that would be great to do more of in the future.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you both for your answers. Let's end our discussion before going through the questions with a last one. Do you have any tips or takeaways on B2B discovery for our viewers?
Yes, sure. I guess for me, B2B discovery remains product discovery. You probably heard in the discussion, interactions with the clients, processes are specific, but the key elements that we rely on are standard. So first is you need to have a clear vision, so you can know what you need to work on. Then you need a shared set of priorities in your company, and a way to get client feedback and access to clients. I think with this in place, you can assess any client request and probably make the best decision on how to proceed. So this is really the usual product discovery items. And then if I try to take a step back and really think about product discovery and so B2B product discovery, the difference is that you have to really interact with your clients, and potentially, as you mentioned, Marie, we have to say no, where maybe on B2C, you don't have this personal interaction with the client. But if you do your product discovery right, for me, it's not that often a no. It's something where you will always try to be in advance and be a step ahead of the problems your clients are facing by knowing their use cases very well, by knowing where your product has weaknesses. And so the good news is clients have a lot of ideas around solutions, but often it goes to a few problems when you really dig. And so when you do your process of discovery right and your product management job the best you can, you often have a list of problems to solve that map not that bad with the client feedback you get. And so you have a big part of the feedback that you can answer in a very positive way, being, oh yeah, that's already planned, or that's something we consider doing. Let's discuss what you have in mind. And then you have a few set of things you don't want to do because it's not aligned with your vision, but then you can explain why. And you have the few things you're currently really discovering because they're not part of the set of problems you have already identified. But it's not the majority of the requests you get.
Okay, thanks for your answer. I switch now to the questions. So we have the two first questions with 15 votes for each, and they are both on customer success relationship with product teams. So the first one is, what is your process to structure how the customer success team is sharing their feedback, and on which time frame are you answering them?
Do you want to take it, or should I take it as you want?
Yeah, you can start. We'll have
Okay.
a think. Question.
So, as I mentioned, the customer success team at Shift is quite specific, and it means it's quite small. I think we have 3 or 4 people for now. So we don't have much of a structured process. We're having a lot of one-on-one interactions. We know them well, they know us well. We're almost the same size of teams. Well, they're even smaller than us. And so the time frame is quite short, as it's a team with which we have personal interactions in a sense. I guess the team where we get more feedback and that's far bigger and with whom, like the other teams with whom we may need processes, are data scientists, since they're 100, delivery team or even sales team regarding market opportunities and prospect feedback. And so I guess as Emily mentioned, for now, we don't have a very structured process. We have, everybody knows we have a mailing list to which people can send any feedback on the product. And everybody knows that Emily has a Jira board somewhere with all the information around this kind of requests, but that's something, for example, sales do not have access to. So that's clearly one of the places, as Emily mentioned, where we would like to have a more structured process and potentially tools like product board to centralize this. And in terms of time frame, so things go quite quickly at Shift. So I would say if we haven't answered in a week, it becomes a bit touchy. Yeah, I would say something around a week is the usual time frame we give ourselves to get back to someone with a product-related question. I don't know if it sounds like a reasonable time frame, Emily, from your perspective.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the only thing I would add to that is it's often a two-way thing, right? So we have the feedback coming in from customer success, but they're often the people we will go to, given their kind of extensive experience working in the industry, if we want to validate some of our own ideas and the stuff that we're currently working on. So it's often a case of if there's a particular product or area of the interface that we'd like to focus on, and we know it's going to be part of our plans in the coming months, it will just be a case of kind of scheduling an ad hoc session to talk through and understand from their perspective some of their thoughts and opinions on how we should work on that. So it's definitely a two-way thing, and I would say it's fairly unstructured, but everyone kind of knows who to go to when they need something.
Okay, so for now, both on with data scientist team and customer success management team, do you have any specific routines and process, or not? It's just like exchanging with them. The second question.
I think a lot of it's kind of ad hoc exchanges. If we have a particular client go live that's coming up, or I guess a big milestone that's approaching, we'll often have more frequent, more dedicated kind of regular sessions with the project management team, for example. They're often like a weekly meeting with project management, product, data science as well, if we're kind of approaching a go live. So that's probably the kind of most structured that we have those sessions, and then most other things are a bit more of an ad hoc fashion.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, as you mentioned, and it's a go live, like for a new client that's using a new feature or something like that. When we have a dependency between having a new client live and a feature that we're working on. And I guess you have the same kind of regular meetings on specific features that are very important company-wide, where we have people a bit from all teams, but more in the how are we sure we're executing the right way. On my side, I used to go to the meeting from the lead data scientists. So under 100 data scientists we have at Shift, there are about 10 data scientists that manage other data scientists, basically. So they're leading teams. And I was really attending their weekly meeting to share things around product and to get feedback. But we stopped doing that in a sense because it was a bit complicated for the entire group sometimes to talk about like one specific thing for one geography that's not really interesting for others, or like when health-led data scientist was talking about something that was not really relevant for the PNC folks. And I had a bit the same with the project managers. So now we do, as Amy mentioned, more ad hoc meetings. And I guess I still do quarterly sessions with the leads from other teams, but more to talk about like how can you reach us and who's in charge of what in the product team, so you have the right person to talk to. I think it really relates a lot to Shift's culture, being a lot around discussions and one-on-one, well, like specific topics that are addressed between the right persons.
Okay. And the last part of this question would be, to what extent customer success managers are also experts on the product, on how the product works?
Yeah, I would say like data scientist team is very expert because they're like hands-on, and you have some of the data scientists that have joined Shift very early and have seen the product grow. On the CSM part, I would say they're a bit more high level, but I don't know what you think on that, Emily. They know like the big lines, but maybe less experts into the details than data scientists.
Yeah, I think they definitely have a good high level view of the product, kind of often good enough that they could probably do a high level demo of the product. But as you say, I think the lower level detail is definitely where the data scientists, the experts, I would say currently on that.
Next question, thanks for your answers. Next question is, how do you deal with prioritization?
I guess we touched on that a bit kind of in the talk, in the sense of Audrey, from your perspective, the kind of higher level priorities are filtered down, and we work on that process together. And then, on a lower level perspective, it's really something that's, at the moment, a lot of different factors are considered, but there's not necessarily a structured process that we follow in terms of weighing up whether we do A or B first. I know something, Audrey, you started looking at kind of modeling different scenarios based on if we did certain features in a certain order. So that might be interesting to talk about.
Yes. So yeah, I guess the exercise is still being improved, and so I think what we have is like really we have a clear mission, a clear vision. We're currently working on clear set of priorities. And in terms of like in the subset of the big priorities for the company, so we are trying to think about like several KPIs we follow as a company. So for example, we want the configuration of the product to be more efficient. So we want people to spend less time configuring the algorithms and making sure the data is right and the results are right, and like all of this, that's super important for us. We want to automate it as much as possible so that the people configuring really spend time on the most important thing, like adding new algorithms or really fine-tuning them. So that's one of the KPI we know we're going to take care, like really look after for the next year, for example. And so the example Emily was giving is that on this specific KPI, I've worked with the operation person from the implementations team to have a table that will say, like, if we do feature A in Q1, then the car on implementation person will raise from that number to that number. And if we do more feature B in Q1 and feature A in Q2, it will be more that number. And so it's better to do A and B, or it's better to do B and A, with, of course, a lot of assumptions, like how many clients, new clients, existing clients, and like it's a lot around thinking about what can happen. But it gives us a table with numbers that show what the impact of doing this feature will mean, this feature by then will mean. And so it helps us prioritize. And we're trying to have this kind of same approach for the different topics we have. Once we have identified like the key priorities, that like for each priority, we try to have a KPI. that we can then just use for lower level priority. So I don't know if I was clear.
Yeah, you compare the impact it would have on your KPIs, but on a dedicated period of time, or if you do this feature first or the other one first, and then you're not just comparing the adding value at one moment, but on the long term, and one compared to the other. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. And so that for each of the key company priorities that are being defined yearly, more or less.
Okay, great. So we have a lot of questions here. So we can answer maybe by emails to the participants later on, because we won't have the time to answer everything. If it's, maybe we can take a last one. So next one on the list with 11 votes. Do you run product experiments? And if so, how do you do this?
What do you mean by product experiments?
So I'm not the one writing the question. Maybe you want to type in the chat. But I imagine like testing, doing some those patterns to test the desire for a new feature that you may want to do, but you haven't done already, or doing A/B testing, or doing, I don't know, experiments to on your product. Maybe sometimes the question is maybe here because it's sometimes more complicated, not the as your clients are using daily for a work reason, etc., and it's more complicated than on a B2C product, I assume.
Okay, so I'll answer
the person said I meant testing usability, for instance.
Okay, so I'll answer on so we don't do A/B tests, because for me A/B test makes sense when you have high traffic, and that's not our case, since we have like you can count in like 70 to 80 clients, and so we have maybe 10 people logging in, but it's just not the time. I think it's one of the potentially B2B specifics is that to get the traffic you need to do representative A/B tests on B2B, you need to have like a huge product with a customer base that's a bit crazy. So that's not our case. We have a very good customer base, but we're not having enough traffic to do A/B tests. So I'll let you answer, Emily, on the user testing you did, for example, with Alison. I'll do a quick answer on the MVP part, which is more so not necessarily related to Emily's product, but to the other product that are being worked on in my team. So we're considering launching new products or extension or add-ons, or you can call that a bit the way you want, but kind of new offerings around the fraud detection topic. And for this, we have clearly an MVP approach. So at Shift, we call this partner build scale, which is one of the value of the company. So it's first trying a client that's willing to partner with us on this new opportunity and see if it makes sense or not. So for this, we do like what you usually do when you do MVP or experiment. So you define an ICP, ideal customer profile. You want a client in this geography, which size? Is it already a client of the claims fraud detection product? What are the use cases they need to be looking for? So you kind of define who your ideal customer can be. And then you define like what does success mean, right? Does it mean you sell this extra offering? Does it mean we manage to find relevant fraud on this specific thing? Does it mean we have a business case that's super strong? Like, what are the things we're going to look at to say if this MVP is successful or not? And then we just do the let's go out and see if we find a client that meets all the ICP criteria, and see if we move forward. So often the fact that the MVP is successful is if we manage really to sell it. So if a client is ready to pay to work with us on this, knowing that it's aligned with the existing product we're having. And then, of course, if we can really deliver value, and so this is we have a North Star metric at Shift that is savings. So we look at how much money for our product and fraud detection, how much money the client is saving but not paying fraudulent claims. And so we're always looking at would this be fulfilled if we do this new thing. So yeah, on the MVP side, I'm giving you the mic.
I think this is around how do we do user testing? Is that right? Yeah. So I'm quite lucky in the sense that as my team, we have a dedicated user experience designer, which is really great. And we use Figma a lot to build out not only kind of mocks, but also quite kind of high fidelity prototypes for any new features that we're building. And it's you can kind of create very, very realistic prototypes in quite a short amount of time. And often what we'll do is set up 2 or 3 different examples for how something can work, and then either kind of just share them directly with people to test internally, or as I said, we started using that tool called Lookback. So either way, we'll share it with a group of people internally that typically represent different levels of experience of users using the product, and kind of get their feedback in terms of what did they find easy, what did they find hard, before we start any development. So I think kind of using tools like Figma give a lot of insight in a short space of time.
Yeah, sure. Okay, I think we are out of time here, so sorry for not answering all the questions. We will try and do a follow-up on this later. Thanks a lot, Audrey and Emily, for answering all these questions and for participating to this meetup today. And for our viewers, stay tuned for other online meetups next month.
Thanks for having us.